Welcome to Pumping Python. My name is Jacob Itegboje, and this is none. It is used when there is no value. Time to write some code. I will open the Explorer, then with Control and tilde on the keyboard, open a terminal. On Windows without subsystem Linux, /make python tdd.ps1 none as the name of the project. On the other operating systems, /make python tdd.sh none. Enter to run it. It makes the folders and files that are needed, installs packages, then runs the first test. When I Control Option click on the file name, it opens in the editor. I'll change true to false to make the test pass. Change the name of the class to match the capwords format, capital N. Change test underscore failure to test underscore what underscore is underscore none. Change the assert false to assert is not none, and in parentheses change false to none. The terminal shows assertion error, unexpectedly none. This is because the thing in the parentheses is none and the test is checking if the thing is not none. I will change the method to assert is none. The test passes. These methods were introduced in the assertion error video. Enter 3 times after the line, backspace twice, hashtag notes. Hashtag none is none. DEF test underscore is underscore none underscore a underscore Boolean, parentheses self, colon at the end. Self.assert is none, parentheses false. The terminal shows assertion error. False is not none. I will add a note. False is not none. None is none. Change the method to assert is not none. The test passes. Self.assert is none, parentheses true. The terminal shows assertion error. True is not none. I will add another note. True is not none. False is not none. None is none. Change the method. The test passes. I do not want to keep scrolling down to the notes to add them, so I'll bring test underscore none.py to the editor again, close the Explorer. This way I can have the notes on one side. I'll just switch windows instead of scrolling down. The unit test or test case class has 2 methods I can use to test if something is an instance of a class or not. I'm going to use them to test if none is a Boolean. Self.assert not is instance, parentheses false, comma BOOL. The terminal shows assertion error. False is an instance of class bool. This is the class for booleans. False is a boolean. Change the method to assert is instance. The test passes. Self.assert not is instance, parentheses true, comma BOOL. The terminal shows assertion error. True is an instance of class bool. It is a Boolean. Change the method. The test passes. Self.assert is instance, parentheses, non, comma, bool. The terminal shows assertion error. None is not an instance of class bool. It is not a Boolean. Change the method to assert not is instance. The test passes. I will change these last two notes to say none is not a Boolean. None is none. DEF. Test underscore is underscore non underscore an underscore integer, parentheses self, colon at the end. Self.assert is non, parentheses, -1. The terminal shows assertion error. -1 is not none. Change the method. The test passes. Self.assert is non, parentheses 0. The terminal shows assertion error. 0 is not none. Change the method. The test passes. Self.assert is non, parentheses 1. The terminal shows assertion error. 1 is not none. Change the method. The test passes. Self.assert not is instance, parentheses, -1, comma, int. The terminal shows assertion error. -1 is an instance of class int. This is the class for integers. -1 here is an integer for the negative integers. I will change the method to assert is instance. The test passes. Self.assert not is instance, parentheses 0, comma, int. Terminal shows assertion error. 0 is an instance of class int. It is an integer. Change the method. The test passes. Self.assert not is instance, parentheses 1, comma, int. The terminal shows assertion error. 1 is an instance of class int. Change the method. The test passes. Self.assert is instance, parentheses non, comma, int. The terminal shows assertion error. None is not an instance of class int. I will change the method. The test passes. I will add a note. None is not an integer. None is not a Boolean, none is none. DEF, test underscore is underscore non underscore a underscore float, parentheses self, colon at the end. Self.assert is non, parentheses, -0.1. The terminal shows assertion error. -0.1 is not none. Change the method. The test passes. Self.assert is non, parentheses, 0.0. The terminal shows assertion error. 0.0 is not none. Change the method. The test passes. Self.assert is none, parentheses 0.1. The terminal shows assertion error 0.1 is not none. Change the method. The test passes. Self.assert not is instance, parentheses negative 0.1, comma, float. The terminal shows assertion error. Negative 0.1 is an instance of class float, the class for floating point numbers. Negative 0.1 is a floating point number for the negative floating point numbers. Change the method. Test passes. Self.assert not is instance, parentheses 0.0, comma, float. The terminal shows assertion error. 0.0 is an instance of class float. It is a floating point number. Change the method. The test passes. Self.assert not is instance, parentheses 0.1, comma, float. The terminal shows assertion error. 0.1 is an instance of class float. It is here for the positive floating point numbers. Change the method. The test passes. Self.assert is instance, parentheses, non, comma, float. The terminal shows assertion error. None is an instance of class float. No, assertion error. None is not an instance of class float. Change the method. The test passes. I will add a note. None is not a float. None is not an integer. None is not a Boolean. None is none. DEF, test underscore is underscore non underscore a underscore string, parentheses self, colon at the end. Self.assert is none, parentheses single quotes. The terminal shows assertion error. The empty single quotes is not none. Change the method. The test passes. Self.assert is none, parentheses double quotes text. The terminal shows assertion error. Text in quotes is not none. Change the method. The test passes. Self.assert not is instance, parentheses single quotes, comma, str. The terminal shows assertion error. The empty quotes is an instance of class str, the class for strings. This is an empty string. Change the method. The test passes. Self.assert not is instance, parentheses double quotes, text, comma, str. The terminal shows assertion error. Text in quotes is an instance of class str. It is a string. Change the method. The test passes. Self.assert is instance, parentheses non, comma, str. The terminal shows assertion error. None is not an instance of class str. Change the method. The test passes. I'll add a note. None is not a string. None is not a float, none is not an integer, none is not a Boolean, none is none. DEF, test underscore is underscore none underscore a underscore tuple, parentheses self, colon at the end. Self.assert is none, parentheses again. Terminal shows assertion error. The empty parentheses is not none. Change the method. The test passes. Self.assert is none, parentheses again. 1, 2, 3, quotes n. The terminal shows assertion error. 1, 2, 3, n in parentheses is not none. When I change the method, the test passes. Self.assert not is instance, parentheses again, tuple. The terminal shows assertion error. The empty parentheses is an instance of class tuple. It is the empty tuple. Change the method. The test passes. Self.assert not is instance, parentheses again, 1, 2, 3, quotes n, after the closing inner parentheses tuple. The terminal shows assertion error. 1, 2, 3, n in parentheses is an instance of class tuple. I will change the method, and the test passes. Self.assert is instance, parentheses none, tuple. The terminal shows assertion error. None is not an instance of class tuple. Change the method. The test passes. I'll add a note. None is not a tuple. None is not a string, none is not a float. None is not an integer, none is not a Boolean. None is none. DEF, test underscore is underscore none underscore a underscore list, parentheses self, colon at the end. Self.assert is none, parentheses, square brackets. The terminal shows assertion error. The empty square brackets is not none. Change the method. The test passes. Self.assert is none, parentheses, square brackets, 1, 2, 3, quotes n. The terminal shows assertion error. 1, 2, 3, n in square brackets is not none. Change the method. The test passes. Self.assert not is instance, parentheses, square brackets, list. The terminal shows assertion error. The empty square brackets is an instance of class list. It is the empty list. Change the method. The test passes. Self.assert not is instance, parentheses, square brackets, 1, 2, 3, quotes n, after the closing square bracket list. The terminal shows assertion error. 123n in square brackets is an instance of class list. It is a list. Change the method. The test passes. Self.assert is instance, parentheses, non, comma, list. The terminal shows assertion error. None is not an instance of class list. I will change the method. The test passes. Time to add a note. None is not a list. None is not a tuple, none is not a string, none is not a float, none is not an integer, none is not a boolean, none is none. It looks like that's all none is going to be. It's not going to be any of these other data structures, but I'll keep going. DEF, test underscore is underscore non underscore a underscore set, parentheses self, colon at the end. Self.assert is non, parentheses, set, parentheses. The terminal shows assertion error. Set parentheses is not none. Change the method. The test passes. Self.assert is none, parentheses, curly braces, 1, 2, 3, quotes n. The terminal shows assertion error. N123 in curly braces is not none. Change the method. The test passes. Self.assert not is instance, parentheses, curly braces, 1, 2, 3, quotes n, comma after the closing curly brace, set. The terminal shows assertion error. 123n in curly braces is an instance of class set. Change the method. The test passes. Self.assert is instance, parentheses, non, comma, set. The terminal shows assertion error. None is not an instance of class set. Change the method. The test passes. I'll add a note. None is not a set. None is not a list, none is not a tuple, none is not a string, none is not a float. None is not an integer, none is not a boolean, none is none. DEF, test underscore is underscore non underscore a underscore dictionary, parentheses self, colon at the end. Self.assert is none, parentheses, DICT, parentheses. The terminal shows assertion error. The empty curly braces is not none. Wait a minute. Python uses curly braces for sets. It also uses them for dictionaries. There's a difference. I'll show that in a little bit. Change the method to assert is not none. The test passes. Self.assert is none, parentheses, curly braces, quotes key, colon, quotes value. The terminal shows assertion error. Key, colon, value in curly braces is not none. Change the method. The test passes. Self.assert not is instance, parentheses, curly braces, comma, DICT, the class for dictionaries. The terminal shows assertion error. The empty curly braces is an instance of class dict. It is the empty dictionary. Change the method. The test passes. Self.assert not is instance, parentheses, curly braces, quotes key, colon, quotes value, come after the closing curly brace, DICT. The terminal shows assertion error. Key colon value in curly braces is an instance of class dict. It is a dictionary. Dictionaries have key value pairs with colons separating the key on the left from the value on the right. You can add more key value pairs with commas separating them. That's the difference between dictionaries and sets. There's more on this in the video on dictionaries. I will change this method to assert as instance. The test passes. Self.assert is instance, parentheses, non, comma, dict. The terminal shows assertion error. None is not an instance of class dict. Change the method. The test passes. I will close the terminal for this last note. None is not a dictionary. None is not a set, none is not a list, none is not a tuple, none is not a string, none is not a float, none is not an integer, none is not a Boolean, none is none. Now there's some duplication in a few of these methods that I could have removed with variables, but that would have added one or two extra lines. I do not think that's necessary for the exercise. I ran tests to show what is none and what it is not. Would you like to test Booleans? I'll see you in the next one.